Jar Jar is a key to all this.
What's up, guys? Welcome to RMR, and today we are going to be watching Hoshino, a Star Wars fan film directed by Stephen Vitale, written by Eric Carrasco. We have Stephen Vitale as the producer and the editor, starring Anna Akana, Tim McKernan, Eric Carrasco, cinematography by Ryan Broomberg and Alyssa Braccato, and original score by Joey Newman. Before we get into it, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Also, make sure you check out our Patreon page, where you get exclusive content that nobody else is watching, and that includes deep dives into the videos where you get my uncensored opinions about the films that I'm watching, and you also get to hear how I would have made it better, in my personal opinion. You also get exclusive behind-the-scenes content on upcoming projects and first looks. You get early access on everything before it even hits YouTube, so you're the first to see everything. And speaking of Patreon supporters, we have Deon Alexander as a new Patreon supporter. Thank you so much for joining the Golden Guy Pictures family. And what's great about the Patreon page is when you support me on Patreon, it's actually helping me provide funds to sponsor a child in Kenya. He's getting education, 3 meals a day, and clean water, and it's all because you guys are helping me through that process. So thank you very much. Please consider joining Patreon if you haven't already. And with that said, let's watch this fan film.
John Sue, when are we moving on to lightsabers?
That is not the right question. You should be asking what is unique about a lightsaber, what is essential. It's not the blade's color. It's not its power. No. The most important thing about a lightsaber is that it's a sword that can be turned off. It doesn't have to be
a sword at all. I get it. But we can still train. If it's a choice, let me choose.
Soon. The Force is in that stick as much as it's in this. Ko, you have to remember this. This is light, but it has weight.
Beautiful dialogue.
In a real fight, I'd be able to see.
To be a Jedi is to fight the darkness. The blindfold is just a helpful simulation. We are the guardians of peace in the galaxy. We defend and protect. We never attack.
I have friends in orbit who probably heard you coming.
We are the guardians of peace in the galaxy. We defend and protect. We never attack.
Chills. You know what's crazy is this is like my 10th time watching this fan film. This was not a fresh reaction to it. I probably should have opened that right off the bat. But regardless, this is a fantastic film. Just very short and sweet. It gets to the point. It doesn't pull punches. It doesn't waste time with, you know, needless story beats. It's there to remind us of the importance of a lightsaber. It's more than just this visual stimulant, you know. There's so much meaning behind the lightsaber, and it's reminiscent of the importance of the samurai sword. You know, Jedi were always sort of like this sci-fi representation of the ancient samurai. And they captured that so beautifully in this story, in the dialogue and in the things where, in the situations where they didn't speak, like when Hoshino is putting together her lightsaber. We're kind of in this double narrative situation, and the Sith leaps at her, and instead of taking the lightsaber that's like literally in front of her, she drops it and uses the Force instead. So her character is kind of coming full circle. We're jumping between her at her lowest state, you know, her Padawanship, and her mastering the two worlds. You know, if we look at the hero's journey as the narrative structure of this 7-minute short film, they go from leaving the threshold to becoming a master of two worlds by the end of it. And there are tons of other things that I want to dive into. But first, let me get into my notes, flesh out my thoughts, and then we will jump right into all of the highs and the lows, and then we will give this fan film a score. So let me get back to you guys in a little bit. And we're back. All right, so let's dive into this fan film. So I have a lot of great things to say about this short. Now, before I dive into it, I said earlier that I have already seen this film, and I've actually watched the behind-the-scenes content on the making of this film. So if you haven't done that, make sure you check that out. It's really interesting, very fascinating. They put a lot of work and effort into this thing. They're very passionate about the project, and you can see it. You can see the results of their work. But it's just, you appreciate it so much more when you realize that they had an actual orchestra develop their score. And you appreciate it so much more when you realize that they had stunt doubles and special padding for all the force throwing, and the shot where they're on the side of the hill practicing forms. That was actually visual effects as well. They pasted the silhouettes over that ridge, and the remote, the training remote. That was also a combination of green screen and I believe there was some rotoscoping as well. And the Minox in the cave, those were puppets that they also used green screen for, and there's just a lot of work put into this. They also storyboarded the entire thing, which I thought was like, wow, that's really cool. You don't really ever see that in Star Wars shorts like this. It's very rare when I see that personally. I've watched quite a bit of behind the scenes content on previous films, but it's rare when you see that they've actually storyboarded their film in its entirety too. So that's really cool. But the highs that I want to talk about, I loved the dialogue. Dialogue was just so, again, it's like so direct and to the point. It doesn't waste time. It wears its heart on its sleeve. And that is such a Star Wars trait in the films, is a lot of people complain about the wooden dialogue or how cheesy the dialogue is. It's like, well, you can call it cheesy, you can call it wooden, or you can say the dialogue is so truthful and to the point that you can't even like put in effort to understand what the characters are feeling. Again, the dialogue wears its heart on its sleeve. It tells you exactly what the characters are going through so that you can move through the story faster, because there's just so much happening within the universe of Star Wars that George kind of has to make up for that time within the dialogue. And so that wooden dialogue actually helps push the narrative faster than what other directors and writers are even capable of. So you really see that in this short. The dialogue is just so well executed, so meaningful and poetic. I also think the pacing between the two narratives was very well balanced. And that goes hand in hand with the editing. The editing was so natural and fluid. I never felt like I was yanked out of the story. I could just fall into it, and I could just immerse myself into the story of what's taking place and just kind of keep my eyes in the center of the screen. And that was another thing, was you notice everything within the confines of this short took place roughly in the center of the frame. Like if you were to go and drag your cursor mouse across the fan film really quickly, everything happens within the middle of the frame. And the reason why cinematographers do this is so that it makes it easier for audiences to understand what's going on, to see what's happening. And the less you can make your audience work, the more of an emotional reaction you will get out of them, which is exactly what they did. Because by the end of it, when she draws her lightsaber and she fights the Dark Jedi or the Sith, I believe, like I was getting chills, like I could feel it. And I was getting excited, like I was just so in it. And that is a sign of great cinematography. That is a sign of great editing. But most of all, that is a sign of a great director. And so I want to talk about the director here. Stephen, you did a fantastic job. You gave me chills as I was watching this. The acting was good. The themes were on point. And I wasn't like I was having to sit there and think, what is this actually about? It's like, no, I know that this is about the reverence of the lightsaber. I know that this film is about the integrity of the weapon of the Jedi Knight. And it was just so to the point. Again, it was just so efficient storytelling. It didn't pull punches. It told you exactly what was happening, and it didn't waste time. And the soundtrack was so great. There's always this beauty with a real orchestra as opposed to using like a soundboard. It's kind of like the competition between celluloid film or film shooting as opposed to digital. Whereas with digital, it's easier, it's arguably more efficient, but film is just, there comes with this reverence and this underlying beauty that digital just can't pull off. And so the music was just so on point, and it elevated the story so well. I also want to talk about the costume design. The costume design was really great. The Jedi Master, he looked convincing. I liked Hoshino's outfit. It was kind of like this Ki-Adi-Mundi type of an outfit. And I think his robes are unique from the other Jedi, and you don't really see that type of outfit very often. So seeing her in that sort of robe was cool and unique from other fan films, and her post-purge, like a galactic Civil War outfit, is so cool. Like, it's just this like short sleeve black flight suit, and it's got the armbands and the details like the silver canisters on the pockets, and it all just felt really tactical and cool. And she just looked so dope with the white eyes and the scar and the black hair. They just put a lot of thought into how these characters look, and it felt right. Everything felt so right and efficient, which goes into the VFX. I'm not going to sit here and say the visual effects were amazing, but they got the job done. I never felt like at any point that the visual effects were bad. Like, the lightsaber parts in the air looked convincing, even though there were some areas where, it could have looked better. The value was, you could tell that there was a lot of effort put into the value, the highlights and the shadows as it's turning. You can see the light reflecting off of it. I would have liked to have maybe seen like some of the parts lens flare or like reflect off of her face as she's turning it. But it is what it is. And the remote and the Minox, I believe, yeah, so both of those visual effects tricks were used with green screen. And I think that's one of the lows I put down. Yes, so although it was great, like there was nothing in of itself, there's nothing wrong with them, I do feel like the training remote could have used a bit more value. So a bit more shadow and highlight treatment would have just felt more, would have put the object in the environment a bit better. Because there were a few shots where it just looked like the remote was just stuck into the frame, you know what I'm saying? So maybe a bit more time spent giving the remote more value would have helped them in the long run. And I also think that some of the shots of the Minox were a bit choppy. It could have been done a bit more fluid. And again, like, that's just part of the trouble with green screen, and you're still using like puppets, which are fun and reminiscent of the original trilogy, but it comes with its challenges, and I think there were some shots where they just fell a bit short. Specifically, the shot where the Minox is coming in and swooping in towards Hoshino, that one just felt a bit choppy. But it didn't pull me out of the story too much, because I was right back into it after she got struck in the face with her lightsaber. Which, by the way, the cinematography of her lying on the ground and screaming, and her eye sockets are all red and her eyes are white, and it's just like, ooh, like it's just so crisp and just so well shot. Everything in this film was just, they took so much time and effort into telling the story as efficiently as they could. If I could describe this short with one word, it's efficient, because it is a very symbolic, thematic story, and it's done in this compressed 7-minute runtime, and it's such an easy watch. You don't have to put a lot of effort into watching it. The sound design is so crisp, and the attention in the sound design is so efficient. You don't really miss anything that the actors are saying. It's just so clear, because it's so important, right? The dialogue in this story is very important, just like how Star Wars has a very special relationship with the dialogue. And the sound design of the little parts ticking as it's like going into the hilt and it's being put together, and the sound of her using the Force and throwing the body against the tree, all these little details to help you as an audience member have the best experience possible that immerses you in the story. And it's just such a efficient way of telling a story, and it's a sign of great directing. And as a fun little tidbit of knowledge for you guys, Hoshino, or the character Hoshino in Japanese means star child, which is kind of what a Jedi is, really, is this unique individual who seems to have fallen from the stars. But on top of that, Hoshino is even more unique because she obviously survives Order 66. You know, she's in her survival outfit. You got the TIE fighters flying overhead. So she's even more special than other Jedi because she survives. You know, she lives past the purge. So it's just a fun little tidbit of knowledge. And overall, it just felt like the writers, Eric Carrasco, he has such a reverence for Akira Kurosawa. I could just feel Akira Kurosawa in this short, like his films were in the back of Eric's mind as he's sitting down with a note and paper and writing the script. Because again, like you watch Kurosawa's samurai films, and there's this reverence of being a samurai. There's a reverence behind the katana. And they capture the essence of what it means to be a Jedi, what it means to have a lightsaber so well in this short, and it's very commendable. As for the other lows, I kind of touched up on the Minoc and the remote, but there was one other thing that, again, didn't bother me too much at all, but it is stuff that I noticed when I'm watching, is that some of the acting felt a bit overacted. Like it just felt like acting. One example was they're training on the canyon side, and she gets shot, and then her master says something to the degree of like, you know, your eyes deceive you, don't trust them, and she kind of like grunts, and then she gets, you know, she stands back up and she grunts again. And like in that moment, it just felt like, this feels like acting. The other part was not long after, when the master takes the rocks and throws them at her and they hit her. And it was just kind of like this awkward exchange where like she kind of reacts to getting hit in the back of the head with rocks, but it wasn't a convincing reaction, and I noticed that off the bat. But I will say, I like the scene where she takes her master's lightsaber. Like you can sense the anxiety of taking her master's lightsaber, and especially when she catches it, and her eyes are like wide open, she's frozen because she's not sure if she just got away with it or not. Just a great little moment. So I'm not saying that the acting was bad in this film. I'm saying that the acting was, again, efficient. There were moments where it felt like it was acting, but for the most part, it was very stylized performances that I thoroughly enjoyed. And the actors were extremely photogenic. They looked very good on screen. Master John Zhu, he looked like a Jedi Master, very Alec Guinness, Kenobi-esque, and Hoshino just held a great presence. She carried it on her back very well. So all in all, I'm going to give, actually, before we dive into the Meiloorun score, I want to kind of fill you guys in. I will be diving into a new segment every week where I talk about the Star Wars factor. I touched up on it last week. We talked about the Star Wars factor then. So if you really want to understand exactly what the Star Wars factor is, you can go to previous videos. Today, we're just going to dive straight into the Star Wars factor. So here we go. Hoshino, a Star Wars fan film, gets a Star Wars factor of 8 out of 10. Great job, guys. The story, solid 10 out of 10. Great work. The spectacle was certainly there. The cinematography and the visual effects really helped with that. And the innovation behind the work put into the spectacle certainly helped you guys out. I gave that a 7 out of 10. They put in a lot of work that you don't normally see in other Star Wars fan films, which is why I find this more innovative than other fan films. And so now that we have the Star Wars factor laid out, 8 out of 10, now let's get into the Rotten Meiloorun score, which I am going to give them a score of 81%. Amazing direction, great writing, efficient storytelling at its finest. Just a very compact, to the point theme that every short film should have. Short films are very fun in the sense that, like, a short delivers the goods. It tells the message quickly, and it doesn't waste time. A lot of short filmmakers actually struggle writing features because their brains are wired to tell the themes quickly and efficiently. And this is a great example of efficient, quick storytelling. And in the same way, I've heard of many feature filmmakers who struggle with the short story form because they spend so much time in story beats that don't absolutely have to be there. Not that that's a problem, but when it comes down to it, having to think of what is most important in your story can be quite tricky, especially when you need to compact it in a runtime that's under 10 minutes. So make sure you guys check this video out on YouTube, hit like and subscribe, show these people your support. And I believe next week I will be diving into a trilogy of fan films. They just recently came out with their last installment called Secrets of the Temple. And I want to kind of go through all 3 of the films, starting with Secrets of the Bounty. I believe that's what that one is called. Also, again, check out Patreon because I will be releasing a deep dive into this video where you get my full uncensored opinions about this short and how I would have made it better. And have I covered everything? I believe I have. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And as always, may the Force be with you.
I want you to get out of this office right now.
I'm sorry, Sam.
No way.
You brought
No
it up.
way.